Okay. Next up will be HB 237 by Rep. Mack. Staff reading the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, House Bill 237 by Representative Mack provides relative to the use of seclusion and physical restraint to address the behavior of students with exceptionalities.
Thank you, staff. Rep. Mack on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my first time to present a bill in education, so I just want to say I'm very excited about this bill. I want to say that it was a pleasure to have my name one more second on this bill. And it is written basically just to improve the educational experience in Louisiana for our children with exceptionalities. And I want to thank everybody, including Miss Lisa, for putting up with me. All the changes we requested, thank you very, very much. I want to thank Ashley McReynolds and Kelly Monroe with ARC for helping me put this bill together. And I want to thank Miss Ashley Townsend for working so hard with us to help put this bill together. And I thought it was a great idea to bring both of them to the table, Miss Ashley Townsend with the Department of Education and Miss Ashley McReynolds to the table with ARC to help answer any questions that y'all may have so that together we can move this bill favorable at the appropriate time, you know, when maybe somebody might offer it up. I want to also say that if you have any questions on the physical part of the bill, we have Miss Lisa here. I think she possibly could be in the ante room to help answer some of those questions. Also, this group right here will try to help answer your questions on that. Okay.
Thank you, Rep. Mack. And I sit in front of Rep. Mack, so I know how hard he's worked on the bill. And looking at this stack of green cards, I can see he put in a lot of work on this bill. So thank you, Rep. Mack, for your work on that. Did you all want to speak on the intro of the bill? Because I know we have a substitute bill that.
Do y'all want to get
Yes,
that done
let's
first?
do that.
Okay.
So I'm going to offer up a substitute bill, which staff, if you could please read it in.
Members, in your folders, there is a substitute bill, and it's number 2149 in the top left corner. For those watching online at home and for those in the audience, it's in amendment form online as number 2315.
Thank you, staff. So the questions are going to be on the bill. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt the substitute bill. Are there any objections on that? Seeing no objections, we have adopted the substitute bill. So back now, what is on the bill? So if you
like me to start? Okay.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Ashley McReynolds. I am the mother of Cooper McReynolds, who is now 19 and used to be a student who received special education services in East Baton Rouge Parish Schools. He unfortunately was the victim of inappropriate use of physical restraint and seclusion during his time in school. I want to thank you, Chairwoman Schlegel, and the committee members for allowing me to speak today. I work at the ARC of Louisiana as a program director and love everything that I do there, especially helping families navigate raising a child with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I want to thank Representative Mack for taking on this bill and supporting us when we brought him this important issue. I've had the honor and privilege to work alongside the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council, Disability Rights of Louisiana, the Louisiana Public Charter Schools, our Bessie Board, and the Department of Education to get this bill into a posture that aims to make classrooms across Louisiana safer, not just for students, but also teachers and other school employees. I want to thank everyone who worked tirelessly over the last 2 weeks to get this bill into its current posture. The practices of restraint and seclusion disproportionately impact children with disabilities, especially those with autism, intellectual disabilities, emotional disabilities, minorities, and boys. Students with disabilities are impacted more by restraint and seclusion because schools and their classrooms are sometimes not well designed to meet all of the needs that students with complex disabilities, and teachers and other school personnel are not properly trained in CIT, trauma response, and other de-escalation techniques. I will be the first to admit that this bill is very different from the bill that was originally filed. But getting a bill in education to pass is a daunting task and takes all players coming to the table willing to give and take. And I do believe that this is a great bill, and I just want to highlight some of the key changes that we made before I conclude. We are attempting to eliminate the use of mechanical restraint. We are enhancing provisions of the use of physical restraint in seclusion. We will be working with Bessie and the Department of Education, along with higher ed, to add crisis intervention training and effective strategies for behavior management of students with disabilities into teacher certification, so that teachers have training and are coming into the classrooms better prepared with a minimum basic understanding of these strategies and techniques. We are clarifying who can use physical restraint in less than emergency situations. We are changing up the notification requirements of incidents of restraint and seclusion to school administrators, and also the reporting requirements that will be sent home to parents. We will be requiring school administrators and our SPED directors to review camera footage after an incident of restraint and seclusion if the incident occurs if in an area with a camera. We will be requiring that IEP teams reconvene if incidents of restraint and seclusion are needed more than 2 times. It used to be 5 times in one school year. Also reducing the number of minutes that a student can be held from 5 to 3 before it is actually considered a physical restraint. We are also adding in language to require that IEP teams notify parents of the parental opt-out of restraint and seclusion. This language has always been in the restraint and seclusion bill, but there was not language around the education of parents of this particular opt-out. The Department of Education will also update the procedural safeguards handbook that is given to parents at their annual IEP meeting. We will also require that LEAs install the cameras in all special education classrooms with monies that they have been allocated for regardless of parental consent. There has been a lot of back and forth and discussion around the installation of these cameras. There have been districts that have denied parents' requests for these cameras, and so I believe it is both the department and the legislature's will just to get these cameras installed with monies that have already been allocated. And then lastly, the department will be developing a CIP training that will only pertain to certain school employees that will be a part of a CIT team. And this training will be an in-depth training, and all of the requirements of that training are spelled out in this particular bill. This training is being developed by the department with the use of IDEA dollars, and I appreciate their support and prioritization of these dollars for this training. I know there are more, but for the sake of time, I will stop there. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Reynolds. Mrs. Townsend, did you want?
I'm here to provide information as needed. I will say it was a pleasure working with everyone to get this to where we think it's in a really great place.
Thank you so much. Rep. Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Mack, I had no idea this was your first bill before this committee. So just be patient with some of the questions that might come. One of the questions, I noticed that, and I'm sorry I didn't get your name.
Ashley.
Ashley.
Yes, ma'am.
Ashley, I noticed that you indicated there would be higher education training.
Correct.
So my question then to Representative Mack, if you will this training be retroactive in terms of addressing the need to have the training with all professionals in the school systems?
Yeah, I'm going to let Ashley Townsend speak to that. Thank you for that question.
Hey, Ashley. Which Ashley?
I'm Ashley Townsend
Okay,
with the department.
let me hear from
We
you.
do have a collection of Ashleys. So the idea is that this training will be developed, and think of it as two different types of training. There's a very in-depth training that needs to be completed by those people on that crisis intervention team in the school who will actually be performing physical restraint on students to make sure that they're doing it safely and correctly. This training is that general understanding of some of the really unique needs that teachers might find in the classroom, and strategies and techniques that they may need to be overall familiar with as they go into classrooms to be able to support the special ed faculty and those students and parents at their schools. So it's a general kind of training. And the idea is that universities and teacher prep programs would be able to use either that general training that LDOE will develop, or they might choose to incorporate this across a few different classes that pre-service teachers take. For example, think about it in your introduction to students with disabilities class. You might need an introduction to the different types of needs that might necessitate this kind of response. And then maybe again, whenever you're getting ready to do your residency out in schools, you might need a little preface to help you be ready for some of the things that you might see out there, while you still have mentor teachers and university personnel able to help you think through those situations and how you're seeing that play out.
So that relates more to people who have not been hired in the school system. That's those who are still in college, per se.
Correct, yes,
right?
ma'am. And then we'll also have
So
training
what
available.
about, my concern is, what about this teacher who's been teaching 8 or 9 years?
That's a great
And
question.
she's in the classroom. So how will she get her training?
That's a great question. We'll also have that training available for school leaders to say, you're having this student assigned to you this year with really complex needs. Instead of listening to this handbook orientation for this hour, we'd like you to spend this hour doing this training provided by the department to help orient you to those needs for this year.
So
that would be
each
available.
school district then would be required to provide training?
They would have it available to them. We would provide it, and it would be available for them to use when they think that's a need for a teacher.
So
who
what
will have a certain
happens
situation.
should a teacher not be trained?
It's not required for general education teachers. It's required for the teachers who will be performing that physical restraint on students.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Carpenter.
you.
Rep. Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. Mack, for bringing this bill. I think this is a great bill. I really do. I think every year we make progress in how we treat and how we educate our students with special needs. And I think this is another step in the right direction of doing education the right way. And I appreciate it, and I would move favorably when appropriate.
Thank you, Rep. Freiberg. Rep. Edmonston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
The crisis intervention training, it seems like there's two levels.
There is.
Okay, one is broadly for pretty much everybody if they choose to do it, is that correct? Or if the school leader, and then the other is for the personnel that have direct input with the student. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, don't we already, what do we have in terms of already, Ashley, and either Ashley, you know as much as probably as Ashley does because you've been around forever, but what do we have in place now?
I think some of it has actually been repealed over the last 2 sessions. I think Ashley can speak specifically to what's left, but a lot of the mandatory trainings got sort of wiped out over the last couple of sessions. So I think it's really just primarily the ethics training and what was the other one?
Mandated reporter. And we do
Mandated
have,
reporter.
most school systems have something like this in place already. And so I think, and Meredith with the department is here if we need more information, but I think we have 45 of the 68 districts who currently contract with CPI to do that training. I know you're familiar with that one. And so that's an example of one provider of that training that's currently in place now.
Okay, I think that's my only question for right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Edmonston. Rep. Rass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I get into my one question that I need to ask, if I may, I failed to acknowledge 3 individuals with the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, if I may at this time, Madam Chair. Regional VP, Mr. Jermaine Netherly. We also have with us Regional Vice President-elect Dr. Rodney Welsh. And lastly, we have our District Director, Dr. Anthony Jackson. So just like to welcome you guys to the Capitol and to House Educational Committee. Rep. Mack, thank you for bringing this bill. No, this is definitely near and dear to my heart. I had a nephew with Down syndrome, nonverbal, and had some issues with this, I guess, the parameters of your bill. So my one and only question is, I'm glad to see we've had measures in place to protect the students, but one thing that I struggle with is, especially with a student that's nonverbal, are there any measures in place to where administration or the principal can police it to the point where maybe there's some random checks of the video footage, or that random checks where the principal can monitor a student interaction with the teachers just to prohibit. Like I said, in the case of my nephew, it went on for no telling how long because he's nonverbal until he started acting differently around that certain teacher. So I guess my question is, are there anything that's with teeth in this legislation that gives the administration to randomly spot check or to have evaluation of teacher to prevent just from going on for
I think there's 2 changes. First is the mandate around each LEA having to install the cameras in those special education classrooms. So right now, it was all based on parental request. So the monies have been allocated to the districts and the schools. They have the funding, but if there wasn't a parental request, or if a parent made a request and the school, for whatever reason, denied the request, those cameras were not installed. So that's, I think, the first piece. The second piece is we added language around if there was an incident of restraint or seclusion, and it happened in an area where there's a camera. So if a physical restraint happened in a hallway or in an area of the school, lunchroom, whatever it might be, we are mandating that they go back and pull that footage to make sure that proper techniques were used during the incident. If it happened in a special education classroom, they would also be able to pull that footage and review that to ensure that the student was, the techniques were used properly. And then we also added in some language that a school health personnel or a nurse has to check in with that student by the end of the day to ensure that that student is not in any type of distress, make sure there's no marks, bruising, stuff like that related to the incident. So we tried to put some guardrails in there, some protections, both for the student and the teachers. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, but like I said,
Okay.
it still has my concern where unless the parent makes a request or that it can go on for months or days prior without, especially with a kid that's nonverbal, that they're having issues. So no, and I'm not sure how we address that issue.
Well, the parental request piece has been removed. We are now going to ask all schools to install the cameras, period. That parental request option has been removed from this legislation. So the installation of the cameras in those special education classrooms will be mandated now.
So if a teacher is harming or doing a disservice to a student, and he's not able to verbally notify somebody, how does that complaint, or how is it, unless another teacher, another aide sees that person being harassed or harmed by the teacher, how is that without an official request being made or by teacher? Are there any things in place to where a principal can randomly go into a classroom just to visually check or to monitor a teacher just to ensure it's not happening without a teacher, without a parent or another aide making a request? It's I know we're not going to answer it here, but that's a concern as far as I think a lot of kids are going through that. They're having to go through this tragic issue
Agreed.
months, weeks prior to somebody seeing it or prior to a parent noticing some type of difference or marks.
Right.
So my thing is, how do we catch it in the bud to ultimately, be helpful to the students? Is my my concern. But I know we're not going to answer it, but I just want to kind of put that on your radar, Rep, that as you go through the process, if there any way, as you talk to Betsy and Department of Ed, that we can kind of put some parameters or measures in place to where we maybe can randomly a spot check or in addition to the additional videos to catch this early as compared to months down the line.
Thank you, Rep. Rass. Rep. Carpenter.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to have another bite at it just quickly. I didn't see it in here. Maybe it might have been mentioned. Is there anything in here that addresses sort of relative to what Representative Brass is mentioning? Is there anything in here that will allow a parent to decide that they do not want such action taken with that kid?
Yes.
Case in point, autism. All parts of the spectrum are different.
Agreed. So
As a case in point, you know.
the original bill that was filed in 2011, and as it has been amended, there has always been a parental opt-out. I was around on the original restraint seclusion. I don't remember the parental opt-out. I don't think parents really recognized that they had the option to opt their child out of physical restraint and seclusion. So what we did in this bill was we are now mandating that parents are educated on the parental opt-out, so it will occur at their annual IEP meeting. And then the department is also going to update the procedural safeguards handbook that goes out to all of the districts that then the schools give to the parents. The parents have to sign off on it. So they will be notified 2 different ways. And then just to make sure that people aren't just going to like a random urgent care or doctor, we really wanted to make sure that the doctors that they were seeing were the physicians that were treating them. So we did put some language in that it has to be a pediatrician, a neurologist, or a licensed mental health provider.
So it has to be someone familiar.
Correct.
with
And we recognize that not everybody has access to mental health care providers.
Absolutely.
Not everybody has access to neurologists. So I fought to have pediatrician put in there because at the very least, most everybody has, a pediatrician.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rep. Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Edmonston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Y'all, on the fiscal note, there's really, it doesn't seem like there's any money tied to this, correct?
Right. Right. There's one module of that universal training that we already have available, and then the additional training we'll develop with set-aside funds. And so in the original bill, the fiscal note, as a response to that, all of those things have been removed. So
Okay. And then we just got through passing a bill that has to do with court records, and then I'm seeing here provides for the transfer of school disciplinary records and for school personnel's access to certain juvenile court records. Is that when a child maybe is going into a facility? Is that what that's talking about? Or are you talking about from school to school? Are you familiar with it's the very top line on the fiscal note?
No, I actually have
And then it
not
goes
seen
on
the
to
fiscal
say,
note.
not just suspensions and expulsions upon the written request of any authorized person on behalf of a public school, non-public school, educational facility within a correctional or health facility where the student is enrolled. So I'm thinking that might be like a facility that takes kids that are having difficulty for 30 days or so.
I'm not seeing that.
Second paragraph I just read. I'm just curious. I mean, since we just passed that piece of legislation out
Where
of
are we
here.
talking at again? We're having trouble finding that.
Okay, look on you see this? Okay, the very top line provides for the transfer of school disciplinary records and for school personnel's access to certain juvenile court records. And then I read a little bit on the second paragraph.
Rep. Edmonston,
Wonder
just
if
check
that's
that to make sure that's not Rep. Baralt's bill.
Yeah, I don't-
Representative Baralt's bill.
Oh, it is. I'm so
It's
sorry.
okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Oh, gosh.
We figured it out. Okay.
I beg
All
your
right.
pardon. It was, connected to that bill. I'm sorry, y'all.
No problem.
All right.
No wonder y'all looked like you didn't know what I was talking about.
Thank you, Rep. Edmondson. Okay, I know, we were all, I think, trying to figure that. Okay, thank you, Rep. Edmondson. Okay, the board is clear. We do have lots of green cards and people would like to speak, so I'm going to call up everyone 3 at a time. What looks like maybe Chris Rowe with the Council of Parents, Attorney, and Advocates, and then Tori Rocca with the Disability Rights of Louisiana, and Sarah Vandergriff with Charter Schools. And then if you could just begin.
You want me to start? Okay. Good morning. I'm Chris Rowe with the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates. We're a national organization of about 3,600 attorneys, advocates, and parents of students with disabilities, including about 50 members here in Louisiana. I am also a parent of 2 sons. I live in New Orleans, who have autism and have firsthand experience with the effects of restraint and seclusion. I'll never forget the day when I went to pick up my son, who's 5 years old. I had no idea what restraint and seclusion was, but saw it firsthand. And that was a day that forever changed his life and my life. It was a very traumatic experience. My son was repeatedly subjected to this policy, this practice over a series of years, which ultimately led to him being suicidal. We removed him from that school, transferred him to a different school, and today he's a completely different child. But he still suffers trauma anytime we pass that school. So that's my personal story. I will say that the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates has been a leading national organization. We defend and protect the rights of students with disabilities. We've been working on this issue for more than 15 years. And are the lead author of federal legislation, the Keeping All Students Safe Act, that has been before Congress. I work with parents in all 50 states on this particular issue. I will say that I am extremely pleased to see this bill introduced and thankful for Representative Mack and everybody that's been working on this. If passed, this bill would be one of the strongest in the nation. As I said, I work with members in all 50 states on this particular issue. So I would encourage this group to seriously consider this and to pass this bill.
Thank you, sir. You can go.
Thank you. My name is Tori Rocca. I am the Director of Public Policy at Disability Rights Louisiana. Disability Rights Louisiana is the nonprofit that serves as Louisiana's designated protection and advocacy agency for people with all types of disabilities. We have been part of the group that has been working on this bill for the last few months, and part of the inspiration for this bill was actually the Legislative Auditor's report from late last year that identified a number of the problems that this bill addresses. One of the most important being the lack of reporting of incidents that actually happen. It's fairly clear that incidents of restraint and seclusion are happening. Parents are seeing this happen to their kids, but no report is being made, even though current law actually requires reporting of it. And the legislative auditor's report on this issue from last year recommended strengthening reporting requirements. This does that. It's also an idea that was first brought to me by the Department of Education, which was reporting to or having a nurse or a healthcare designee actually examine students after an incident. That I think would also help strengthen reporting. So there are a number of good things in this bill. We support it.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning. Sarah Vandergriff Kelly. I'm the Legal Policy Director for the Charter School Association. I just want to say thank you so much to Representative Mack and the SPED advocates on this bill. I worked really hardly with them for a very long time, over a very short time period, to kind of address the concerns. As you all know, you're on this committee, but writing a bill and changing law is so hard. You have to avoid unfunded mandates. You have to avoid fiscal notes. You have to avoid the Mincy law about if you add a training requirement for all teachers, you got to remove a previous training requirement. So there's multiple hurdles to try to get something actually in play. In addition, writing this law, it's such a broad spectrum for so many different issues. So how do you write a law to really give guidance? What we're trying to do previously was not referenced in the law about the idea of like sensory rooms and calming rooms and other techniques. And too many people were just using the idea of seclusion, even though seclusion is written into law that this is about you're secluding a kid because there's a threat of harm happening. And that in those instances that should be rare, we got to give guidance to schools so that everyone is protected, including the kid, including a teacher, and what can and can't happen. So you don't want to lose those protections for the emergency situation, but something's missing here. Something is missing of why are too many schools using seclusion when we should be talking about something else, and where are all the different ways we can better inform parents, write better policies, et cetera. So where this bill currently stands, I give so much credit to House Ed staff. I cannot tell you how much they actually rewrote this bill on basically 24 hours notice. I think there's still more tweaks. The technicalities of just the legal things that you all know, the process that between now and Senate Ed will be fleshed out. But I did tell the SPED advocate that, and such a good faith effort of how much they really are working and finding compromise, I will definitely come to the table to say, please support this. Even if there's things to still be ironed out on the technicality side of stuff, we can all do that in good faith, continue moving forward. But I think that this is a right move for kids and teachers and everyone involved. And how do we start getting better guidance to everyone from the policy writing side of schools to the actual training that's becoming available? And one of the Ashleys, there's multiple Ashleys involved in this group. Department of Ed Ashley, they all have nicknames. Department of Ed Ashley even said this summer there'll be training being made available to teachers this summer. So you should start seeing immediate action taking place and getting people the help they want, the professional development, so that we can start doing a better job by kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Okay, the next three, Samantha Reed with SELF, and Riley Runyon with SELF, and Vivian Webb with SELF. Sure. Personal privilege, Rep. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to recognize a few people from District 11 that are in the House. I think they have the police jury meetings this week, so two of my favorite ladies are sitting over there from the Lincoln Parish Police Jury. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and it's good to see you.
Thank you, Rep. Young.
All right, where do you want to sit? Okay, you can sit here.
Welcome, and whoever wants to begin first. You'd like to begin first? Okay, you
may
can
I actually ask, to do this with my brother? It's his first time testifying, I think, so I want to help him,
Sure, I'll call you up when I say, what's your brother's name?
Caden Webb.
Caden Webb. Okay, I'll call you up with Caden.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay.
Want me to start? Mm-hmm. This thing on? Can
Yes.
y'all hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Samantha Reed. Some have heard Asher's story. This is Asher. He's 7 years old with Down syndrome. Injured at school and could have died. There was no accountability, including no cameras, and then followed by restraint bruises all over his body. After my first public testimony in March, LDOE informed me of no wrongdoing and immediately closed their investigation. We are still Asher's voice. Year after year, we stand up here and hear our stories. I'm here to give you a tiny fraction what we do on a daily basis and expectations of our futures. Imagine your child or your grandchild for a second, born perfect in every way, from fingers to toes. But something is different. Tests are ran, and news is shared. You don't have a typical new baby. You have a tiny disabled human. From there, it's learning medical terminologies and several hours of self-study, countless sleepless nights, just to make sure your baby is still breathing. Did I feed them right? Clothe them right? Are the wires attached to their monitors correctly? What if a major event occurs and power is lost or a natural emergency? As time goes by, equipment is needed. Feeding tubes, wheelchairs, braces, surgeries, just to help them live and learn. Self-care, what's that? Most moms I know have severe health problems, but their children always come first. Who will care for them when we're gone? Some can't walk, can't speak, can't feed themselves. Who do you trust with them? No one. Not like we trust in ourselves, not church, not schools, not family. What's a family gathering? People act like disabilities are a spreadable disease. Work? Man, oh man, how I miss working. No regrets, my baby is safe at home. We homeschool. We entrust those who are supposed to nurture and teach our children on an every weekday basis, but more times than not, they are abused, especially our nonverbal children. These abuses are swept under the rug, and the abusers move to different positions within the school system or given higher authority jobs. I've asked you, do you have personal experience with the disabled? Support is more than just money. It's hands-on experience that gets you your compassion for the people with disabilities, a better understanding of our battles. I encourage you to do more to understand our everyday struggles, mentally, physically, financially, every single day. And to the moms afraid to speak out, we are a strength in numbers. We are lioness protecting our babies. Do not be afraid. I'm encouraging you to speak up. Someone will help you, like myself, if their heart is truly in it for change and not gain. And to the Livingston Parish School Board who threatened my family if I spoke out, I am not afraid of you. The parish who refuses camera installation even upon parent request. I'm here to definitely support mandatory cameras in classrooms and special needs classrooms without having a request. Lastly, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and hearing us share our stories. Your consideration for our community means so much, and you can be that change that helps protect our loved ones and children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Asher is precious.
Thank you. I call him Frog because of that noise. Anyway. Are you? Yep.
Do I press a button?
Oh, nope, it's on.
No,
And just if you could state your name for the record.
Riley Runyon, Asher Runyon's father. This is all about mandating cameras in the classrooms of the special needs community within the school systems. I thought I was doing the right thing by placing Asher in school settings, so hopefully I could help Asher to have friends, learn by watching others, and grow, to hopefully become successful in life. But this is not the case. As I was watching Asher become something that he was not. As Asher started to pull his hair out, we thought it may be rosacea, alopecia. It is now my belief that the seclusion and restraints that they inflicted onto Asher was making Asher go crazy. Bet he was wondering why this was happening to him. I am constantly reminded day after day seeing that bad habit that was inflicted onto Asher. Among all the other things that happened to Asher in the care of the school system in Livingston Parish, a chest injury, inline restraint marks, bruises, overheating, massive hematoma across half his back. I do not believe that the school has any regard for human life whatsoever. None of these issues was ever reported to Asher's parents. Will the cameras help to limit these issues? All persons that are going to be around the special needs community need to have full psych evaluations and to properly be trained in all areas. All teachers should be required to have full degrees, not trying to get a degree or go through the process of achieving a degree, like in Asher's case. As I come to realize, looking back, by looking at the whole picture, is that the school strung up Asher by all fours and hung him out to dry. As I paid attention, all I saw was torturing him.
Thank you both for coming. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, then I will call up Vivian Webb and Caden Webb together. Whoever wants to start first.
Mic check. Good morning. My name is Caden Webb. I'm from Shreveport, which is in Caddo Parish. I am a 19-year-old triplet and have autism. When I get overwhelmed, I tend to go into a meltdown or shut down altogether. When I was little, adults would respond to my frustration through restraint and seclusion, which is a harmful practice that I am here to ask that you do away with in schools. I also would like crisis intervention training, as well as for schools to use the previously allocated funding for installing cameras in special education classrooms, used to actually install them in all special education classrooms. Please. So, when I was little, whenever I would start to melt down, I would get restrained by adults crossing my arms and picking me up from behind, or so it felt like. In reality, it was probably more like they were tall. I was short, little, and would squirm because I startle if touched from behind unexpectedly like this. Struggling only made it worse, but because I felt like I couldn't breathe, I would go into a full-blown meltdown, thinking they were trying to choke me. I remember this one time, this football player, sized man, would restrain me through forcibly crossing my arms, then forcing all of his weight onto me, turning me into this little ball. It really put strain on my body, especially on my spine. It felt like my spine was about to break. I also couldn't breathe, and it was very scary. Every time they would restrain me, it felt like I was going to die, either from the lack of oxygen in my lungs or the amount of pressure on my body. I was just a little kid who had no idea what was happening, and I honestly thought they were going to at least break my arms. I struggled, but anybody would struggle in that situation. This only made them carry me to the sensory room, which was actually a seclusion room, and then shut the door, leaving me in there by myself in a melted down state where my brain would go on autopilot and do the only thing it could when in survival mode: try and get out by any means possible. The seclusion room was the size of a closet or a very small office. It had a tiny window that was so high up, not even an adult could reach it. The walls were made of cinder block, so that when I kicked it and ran into it during meltdowns, the force of me kicking the wall and the wall itself would result in more bruises and marks on my body than the ones left by them restraining me to get me in there in the first place. I would try to break out of the room by running into the walls as a flight or fight response, like Kool-Aid Man, because I had melted down. I was basically on autopilot. I could never get out of that room because of the locked door. I didn't know it at the time, but my sister and brother would have to watch all of this, and so would the other students. She even used to try and save me, which only got her into a lot of trouble. Mom would drop off a happy kid who rode to school singing "Everything Was Awesome" from the Lego Movie, and have to be called back to pick up her now screaming, crying, hurt kid with bruises and scrapes and cuts on them. None of this is nice. None of this is right. This is why I ask that you support stopping the use of restraint and seclusion practices in schools. Allow crisis intervention training for staff and to use the previously allocated funding meant to install cameras in special education classrooms upon parent requests to actually install them without having to wait for parents to ask for them. Help kids like me have a better chance at accessing their education by doing these things. Thank you for listening to my situation.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing.
Good morning. My name is Vivian Webb. I am a self-advocate and college student from Shreveport, which is up in Caddo Parish. My brothers and I are 19-year-old triplets with autism, which gives us firsthand experience on restraint and seclusion practices and why these are harmful practices that do not belong in schools or anywhere for that matter. I am here to ask that you support removing seclusion and restraint practices as a means of discipline from schools. Crisis intervention training in schools would also come in handy, and if you could have them use the funding previously allocated for cameras and install them in all special education classrooms, perhaps everyone can be safe. When we were little, it seemed like my brother was always being restrained, and usually my other brother and I couldn't even figure out why, and we always worried if we were going to be next. We all three have sensory disorders that make unexpected touch a meltdown trigger or trigger what is called fight or flight reflex reaction. This means if you were to come up behind us and put a hand on our shoulder to lean over or to show us something, while we were working in class, we might startle and jump sky high out of our seats or try and run away from whatever touched us. Or we might even bat whatever it is away. We couldn't see what it was that was touching us. That's just how our brains and bodies work. Mother wrote the school letters explaining this, told whomever would listen in the classroom all about this, but usually she got brushed off and written off as a helicopter parent. We were probably 5 the first time it became a problem for us in school, but it certainly wasn't the last. My brother and I, along with the rest of the class, would have to watch while our brother was being restrained because he, like the rest of us with autism in the class, might have a meltdown. When you restrain somebody, they come up behind you and hold your hands across your body in an X, then hold you close to their body like a hug you can't really get out of, only harmful. If you can't break free, then you struggle and to try to get away, and this only makes the adult's arms end up around your neck, which gives you this feeling that you can't breathe. And if you aren't melted down yet, then you soon will be. Let me also remind you that most consider a meltdown a form of injury, which is why we're supposed to have accommodations in the first place as special education students, to help us never reach that meltdown state at all. For a student who is small and has sensory issues like this, it is very scary to have this happen to you. It's scary for other students to see as well, dare I say traumatic. So if we are restrained and we melt down, which means our brains go on autopilot and our bodies into survival mode, then we are looked at as dangerous and put into a seclusion room in hopes that we will just calm down already. What makes anybody think a child who was just made to feel as if they were having the life squeezed out of them because they can't breathe could possibly calm down under these circumstances? I've had to watch this exact thing happen to my own brother time and time again while wondering if I was going to be next. If the restraint didn't set off his fight or flight reflex, being shoved into the seclusion room and the door shut behind him sure would. He was small, we were small. He felt like they were trying to kill him, and they melted him down to where his brain went on autopilot and his body tried to get away from what scared and hurt him. He would try to get out of that little room by throwing himself into the door and into the wall. I did the only thing I could do, and that was to try and stand up to the adults in the room, and I was punished for it too. I panicked because he was panicking. You would panic too if it were you. It's only human. I am human. My brothers are human. This practice, it is not humane. Seclusion and restraints practices are harmful to the person it is happening to and the people who witness it, young and old alike. I ask that you please remove seclusion and restraint practices from schools so that children won't come home with bruises, handprints, and marks all over their bodies, and so that less classmates and siblings have to experience the trauma, abuse, and mistreatment of their peers, or as in our case, our brother. Crisis intervention training and using that previously allocated funding to install those cameras in special education classrooms would also help make our schools a safe learning environment for all students. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you so much, and you sound like a great sister. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, the last two cards President would like to speak in support is Odell Wilmer Jr. with Self and Cheryl Porter with Self. Whoever would like to start.
Okay. As I so was genuinely voluntold, I'm gonna go first. So good morning, Madam Chairperson and committee. My name is Cheryl Porter, and I am here in support of House Bill 237. I am a proud parent of a child with autism who attends Kinder Discovery Main Campus in Jefferson Parish. I am here today to express, again, my strong support for the bill by Representative Shane Mack. As a parent, I am deeply concerned about the continued use of seclusion and restraint in our schools. My son began kindergarten at Kinder Discovery this past school year. Before that, he attended GT Woods in Jefferson Parish for pre-K, where he experienced a much more supportive and inclusive learning environment. Unfortunately, our experience changed drastically at Kinder Discovery. Within the first 5 days of school, my son was suspended. Since then, he has been suspended 3 more times and physically restrained on 3 separate occasions that I'm aware of. His current behavior intervention plan states that if his class is evacuated more than twice a day or for longer than 20 minutes, he must be removed to a separate space until he calms down and completes a one-step task. Only then can he return to class. Even though my son has the support of his ABA technician, a teacher, and a paraprofessional throughout the day, these restrictive measures continue. Rather than support inclusion, this approach isolates him, labels him as a threat, and causes fear amongst his classmates. Despite being actively involved in my son's education and well-being, I live in constant fear that he would be restrained or secluded without my knowledge. These practices are traumatizing to him and place a tremendous emotional burden on our entire family. This bill takes important steps to better protect children like mine and ensures schools create safer, more supportive learning environments. And I support this bill with the amendments, although I wish it would have banned seclusion completely. Also, ensuring physical restraints is used only by trained professionals, provides oversight by the Louisiana Department of Education, and the requirement of cameras in all special ed classrooms using those existing funds. Parents and advocates have been voicing these concerns for years, and I want to send my son to school knowing that he will be safe, respected, and supported, not punished or traumatized. I want a system that holds schools accountable and prioritizes the dignity and well-being of every student, especially those with disabilities. So again, please support HB 237 and help create a better, safer future for all students in Louisiana. Thank you for your time considering the voices of families like mine.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming today.
Good morning. My name is Odell Wilmer Jr., and God Almighty is the head of my life. I am blessed to have a 5-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder August of 2023. After turning 4 years old, November the 5th of 2023, she started pre-K in East Baton Rouge Parish school system. This was my daughter's first time in a school setting, and there were several challenges. The first was transitioning from one activity to the next, running, screaming, and using the bathroom. When the teacher and the aide didn't want to deal with it anymore, they would call me saying my daughter had diarrhea, so I had to stop doing what I was doing and go get her from school. I eventually quit my job and stayed home waiting for a call from the teacher with another excuse why I needed to come pick my daughter up from school. I began to seek help. A family member told me about Miss Cynthia Chesterfield, Program Director of Inclusive Education with Families Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge. She gave me suggestions. I did the suggestions. And today I am very grateful with the outcome. Since being connected with Families Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge, I met others who work with Miss Cynthia Chesterfield, making sure every family gets solutions to their challenges and every child has an equal opportunity to achieve success in all areas of their life. Upon connecting with Families Helping Families of Greater Baton Rouge, I have received certificates of completion in behavior management, reducing antisocial behavior. Everyone is a self-care day with families involved and treatment of mental health. The cameras in the classroom cover not only the teacher, but the child as well. It protects the teacher who's trying to provide for her family, and it protects the child who's trying to get an education. It's not about who is right or who is wrong. It's about what's right and what's wrong. If we always do what we always did, we're going to always get what we always got. And last but not least, there's an old saying, if it sounds like a duck, it acts like a duck, it walks like a duck, and it talks like a duck, it's prospering. It's a duck. My hope is that you all would pass this bill so that children or individuals with disability within our community will get the added needed help that they need. Thank you for allowing me to share my experience and my strengths and my hope today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Okay, we have cards. This is President would provide information. Kelly Monroe with ARC of Louisiana, and President support not wishing to speak. April Hampton, self. Christina Martin, self. Mimi Webb, self. Ben Lemoyne with Bessie. Susie Labrie. Kristen Reed. Pam Carey. Mariah Bowen with the Louisiana State Medical Society, Lauren Bailey with the Louisiana State Medical Society, and then we have three cards, white cards would provide information, but two would like to speak. So I'd like to call up Danny Garrett with the School Board Association and Cynthia Posey with the Louisiana Federation of Teachers, and then Michael Falk is president and would provide information. And whoever would like to start first.
Cynthia Posey with the Louisiana Federation of Teachers. First of all, would like to thank Rep. Mack for bringing this bill, for his first bill in education. He really took on a Herculean task, and he did a wonderful job with it. We would like to say that we only have a white card because we are looking at the amendments to make sure we're getting feedback from some of our members, some of our SPED teachers. The response we've gotten so far is extremely positive because this bill will go to help clarify some confusion that's in schools. It defines a lot of things, and it really is, we think of very positive things for both teachers and children. And so, again, would like to thank him for bringing the bill, and we look forward to just clarifying any issues between here and the floor. But it's a great bill, and staff did a phenomenal job. So thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garrett.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. Danny Garrett, Executive Council, Louisiana School Board Association. I sort of feel compelled from the other testimony, also the father of a young man with autism spectrum disorder. He's now 28, so I've been dealing with this a while. And for those of you who don't know, my wife was so involved in his IEPs that ultimately she left retail, and after 50 went and got certified. She is now a teacher at South Downs Academy of an inclusion class. She has special ed kids and regular ed kids, her little tiny humans, she calls them. So she deals with this on a daily basis. And I say that so that you will understand that, similar to what Cynthia said, we want to make sure the details get correct. We want to make sure that what's put in the bill is practical and can work. We want to thank Representative Mack. He has been very open to seeing that issue. We've got a little bit closer. There's a few more things that we need to, I think, get clarity on and maybe phrase differently so that they work on a day-to-day basis at the school building level. And he's committed to continue to work with us, and we're going to continue to work with him. I want to thank Sarah Vandergriff, who did a lot of the heavy lifting early on, and Lisa to get us to where we are now. The Louisiana School Board Association wants to make every student's educational experience better. We do need to make sure that it's done in a manner that is practical, that can work. And like I said, and I understand as a father of a son who had meltdowns, that what you had to do is you have to put in a structure that works. And what I learned is it's not all the same for every kid. I actually spoke to Mr. Wilder out in the hallway because I heard him talking about his child, and I was there 20-something years ago, so I know where he's at. We are going to commit to continue to work with Representative Mack to make sure that the legislation is as good as it can be. We know in this building, and perfect can't be the enemy of the good, and we're going to continue to make it better if we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. We do have a question, Rep. Taylor.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank, it was very difficult to sit here and to listen to the testimony. You have firsthand knowledge of what's going on with, people with challenges. And I'm glad that even though I went to insurance before I came here, I had a bill there. I'm certainly glad that I didn't miss this. And I think somebody's already moved that we move this bill favorably. But it was very informative, and it's not enlightening, it's depressing, but it was very informative to know the struggle that people have in order to get kids there, and for people to have a cavalier attitude about how they treat children we need to train them, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this bill, and if I can be of any assistance to you guys who did this, I'd like to tell the rep that they did a fantastic job, and it was teamwork that made this come to fruition, and I will support it.
Thank you, Rep. Taylor. The board is clear. Representative Mack, if you want to come and close on your bill.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you one more time to everybody I've already thanked. I want to thank Mr. Danny and Miss Cynthia for helping. I want to ditto what Rep. Taylor said. This was a team effort, and I'd appreciate any of y'all's help to improve the bill, moving forward as we go through the process. And that's about it. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Representative Mack. Rep. Freiberg has made a motion to report HB 237 by substitute. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, HB 237 will be reported by substitute. Thank you, Representative Mack.
Thanks.